Welcome, everyone. You're listening to How We Heal the podcast. I'm Kir Noel, medical intuitive, your host. Our sponsor is the medicinebuddhawithin.com, intuitive training for all. Check out their website and be registered to be invited to all the upcoming trainings. Now let's begin our show. Hi, welcome to How We Heal the podcast. This is Kir Noel. Today I want to welcome our guest, the extraordinary Liz Abzug, the founder and executive director of Bali, a lawyer, a professor, a congressional candidate, a champion for truth and women's rights, a legacy holder, and daughter of Bella Abzug. Extraordinary human being I get the privilege to have on my show. Question on this podcast and what we like to talk about is how you found your way to become the person you are and to bring us all the incredible things you bring. So that could be a discussion for hours, but we have about 35, 40 minutes. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Liz. Welcome.
Thank you, Kira. Pleasure to be here. How I found my way to where I am. I was lucky to be brought up by two very incredible human beings themselves, my mother and father. And in our household, there was always a strong sense of justice, fighting for a strong sense of justice, love, and compassion. And that really was ingrained in me and my soul, and sort of they encouraged it. Our family lived it, and I've tried to stand by those principles, and to this day are my priority principles.
Yeah, and I see it in your work. I mean, you're so forthright helping young women today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. You know, you have these amazing parents, but even with that, I've met, many who kind of don't follow that path, or even, in my opinion, you have taken it and spread wings to it. You've broadened the view and you've broadened the work that your family was already doing, especially your mother. And I see you as this very unique, very fierce warrior for what your mother began. And you've taken it much further, in my opinion, and because you could. Women's rights and what your mother was able to achieve gave you some of the foundation for some of the work you've done. So let's talk for a minute about what you care about in your life that you're fiercely championing and how have you been able to bring ideas into fruition? How have you brought things into the world that you've given birth to things, in my opinion?
Yeah, thanks. Well, what is high priority to me and always has been civil rights, equal rights, women's rights, LGBTQIA rights, and with heart, constructive change and commitment, passion. And those are the things that I live by. And I've been pushing in my work throughout all the things that you've mentioned here that I've do and that I've done. And it's my own work. It's not just my mother, former Congresswoman Bella Abzug's work. But at this point, I'm old enough to say it's my own work too. And I'm proud of it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And without any hesitation, I mean, you bring an amazing program to women in Bali, through Bali. So, I met you. You've inspired me to bring more voice of what I see in the world, to bring it to in a helpful way, bringing something I can actively say, hey, this might help people. Let's do it. And I also know that you do work really hard at what you do.
Yeah.
And I, again, that's so admirable. And we're both women of great wisdom, with the wise women from living experiences.
Yes, sure.
Detailed age experience, the dates and things. But wow, I have some view of life based on the years we've lived.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you are the daughter of Bella Abzug. And just in case this audience does not know her, please look her up. She is some of the foundation upon which Liz has sprung forward. And I love the famous saying, the woman's place is in the House of Representatives. And I'm sure I should have had you say that, not me.
It's all right.
And you once ran for Congress, didn't you?
No, actually, it was city council.
Oh,
people wanted me to run for Congress, but I ran for city council in Manhattan, to represent the Village, Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, up to the Upper West Side. And it was my first race. It was 1991. I ran openly gay against a gay male, openly gay activist, male candidate. And within 4 weeks left to go to finish the campaign, he announced that he was HIV positive. And this was the first council campaign or any campaign, congressional council for any office in this country, where you had two gay people running against each other, a gay man, gay woman. And I lost that race by not so much, but it was a very intense time in New York City and in this country because gay men were particularly very hit by AIDS and HIV, and people were dying a lot of gay men. And I think, among other things, it was a strong sympathy for my opponent, Tom Duane, in that regard. I mean, he was gay, he was HIV, had AIDS, HIV. And so I understood it. 91, gay community was fighting for treatment. Gay men were dying like flies. And I believe, and everybody else does too, that had an impact and one of the reasons why I lost, even though I myself, as an activist, was fighting for, HIV, AIDS treatment as much as anybody else. And as I was running, one of my closest male gay friends who was, in the hospital at St. Luke's Hospital and really in a situation where he was basically dying, and he subsequently died. So it was a tough race. But I ran where I grew up, basically where I grew up and where I've been active for many years.
Yeah, and it sounds like, so you don't have no hard feelings, but would have been
No.
nice if you'd been there too, because you were also going to advocate for the same crisis that was going on. And so is that your only time you
Yeah.
ran for office?
Yeah. I've been encouraged to run many times for Congress, and I came close to doing that when actually Ted Weiss on the Upper West Side, as a congressman, had died. And truthfully, I would have wanted to be in the Congress back then, but today it's an outrage what's going on. And not to say we need good fighters, and we have some who are fighting against, a very difficult conservative, president platform. But I am doing the work that I would commit to do if I were in the Congress outside of it. I am fighting from outside, basically, the system and dealing with young people, girls, high school and college age, and now some boys too that we've thrown into the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute program, that I have seen has inspired and moved young people to fight for justice and equality in their communities. And that's, for me, very fulfilling.
Yeah, and you've had that program. How long have you been running the program?
20 years. It's 20
Whoa.
years old this year.
Wow.
20 years. And I'm the founder, but I've been running it as a day-to-day ED, executive director all this time, while doing, as you know, other things to make my living as well, to be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
keep it together.
yeah, having a specialized private practice,
Right.
you know.
Professor of teaching for many
Oh,
years and consulting in different parts of the country on, strategic development, business development,
mm.
state and local government lobbying, et cetera.
Are you
And
still doing that work, Liz?
sorry?
Are you still doing that work in private
In a
practice?
very limited way, because on the last couple of years, I really put my focus on the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute, on the program, and on raising money. Now I will probably start to go back to that and write a few books, because I just on October 1 am stepping back and giving my deputy the day-to-day responsibility to run the organization.
Good, and I'm glad to hear there's a book thought, because right before I got on with you, I looked up, is there a book by Liz
Yes.
Abzug? And you're mentioned in books, but I didn't see a book. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not yet. I started a book many years back, and I have two books in my head, but I started one. And then, the demands that having three jobs, running Bali, teaching at Barnard Columbia, and doing the consulting I did, basically all of that to make a living for myself as well while I was running Bali, it made it very difficult to write a book. Writing a book is a major focus, singular.
Yes, I've been writing in quotes for 3 years. So yes,
Now you know.
it's a huge commitment of time
It
and
is. It
focus.
is.
Yeah.
It is. It
So
is.
it's interesting we're here today while this tumultuous moment is happening, and yet again,
Yeah.
tumultuous. And I made a comment the other day I made a post. I said, it's day 2 and I feel safer. They shut off the faucet a little bit. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is a good.
Yeah.
So, so your life is this everything you're shared just in this moment tells me that you're just you're kicking your ass working.
Yeah.
And
My family, everybody worked till they, as we say, dropped. Nobody retired. Honest. Nobody has my mother's sister, every on both sides of the family, nobody retired. They worked till the end, as I said, marching and working with their boots on, till they dropped. And I tell you, I think, yes, they died young. My parents, unfortunately, and relatively young, 77 and 69 in today's, years, that is with the
that is true.
medical. Yeah. But on the other hand, they lived very passionate, full lives and worked and did the things they wanted to do right up to their ends.
Yeah, that I am the same general concept of life is that why stop giving back?
Right.
I mean, work to me is not what I define my role, but it's my passion. Absolutely
Exactly.
everything I do. And you were involved in a film recently that I believe you want to share about? Uh,
Sure. Yes, I would. As you well know, 7 years ago, sort of a unknown filmmaker came to me and asked if he could, and I was interested in doing a documentary about Bella and her work and her life and her achievements, et cetera, and our family's lives. And I didn't know him. You know, he was a young at that time, gay Jewish man, and we met several times. And I decided to go with him. Not to say that I couldn't have had a famous documentary filmmaker, because I know some of them personally, and probably I should have, in retrospect, held off for that. But in any event, we worked for many years. I mean, we had an agreement in 2017, an agreement. I was the executive producer and he's the producer director. And we worked for the first couple of years, I got some interviews with Mom's most amazing colleagues in Congress, famous people in Hollywood who were her friends and people who worked for her, about 25 people. And we interviewed these people, everybody from Lily Tomlin to Barbara Streisand to Charlie Rangel to Mayor David Dinkins, for Nancy Pelosi, for an example. And there are many others. And we interviewed them on site. And Gloria Steinem was an old friend of mine. And we, over time finished it. He edited it. I wanted a professional editor. He had not been. But what's great about it is not only those interviews, but my mother is talking throughout the film because she had her oral transcripts, oral histories that were on video, on tape, that I have kept up at Columbia University in the Rare Archives. And I gave the director, Mr. Lieberman, raw footage, film footage from the movies that my father had taken about of my mother and our family. And so with all of that, it makes it a very powerful story and documentary, because that's what you seek to portray, is the authenticity, of the human being you're doing the documentary of, but also to have the kinds of people making the stories, that they were, and telling the stories of her life, which is amazing.
It's so
Whoops.
you brought all these fabulous historical figures from your mother's life to this filmmaker, and they had all this great, great, great material. I mean, it was just
That's
pretty,
right. He
you couldn't miss the
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't at all. Correct here. This was a gem. This is gold that I handed to an unknown, basically, filmmaker, and I did one or two of those films that almost he self-produced and self-released. I mean, and turns out that we finished a great film, but he became as soon as he got all the raw material that I described, he started to become distant, secretive, keep me out of the loop. And I was by contract, an executive producer for this
right,
film. That
right, you
was the
had
terms in which
protection.
I agreed. Yeah. And it was a legal agreement, the whole thing. And he started hiding, figures from me on terms of cost of production and who, what kinds of things that he wanted to put in and substitute when I was supposed to have say on all the cuts of the film. And in the end, I mean, I had to separate. And he said some things about the process, about me, my family, my sister, and even my mother, which is bizarre because he was documenting, doing a whole bio on her, that just really disappointed me and made me very, very upset. Long story short, 7 years later, the film is finished. I made a
For
deal
sure.
directly with PBS NET to show it, and I have my own deal with them to show it, and they're going to broadcast it probably the first time in March coming up, 2026.
Oh, that's amazing. So,
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that story because, when you have something amazing to share, there are people that will come out of the woodwork to kind of, hey, I want to ride this train.
Yeah.
And even though you're a professional and you've created this contractual experience and it was safe if you signed and actually had integrity, you
Yes.
can sign with people and there's no integrity. And I've been,
Um,
the recipient of that in business too. And you it's just, amazing what people will how it will get twisted in the way. But
it's
yeah.
exactly. And from what you just said, it's a very sad thing for a guy who is trying to develop as a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, and a young filmmaker who had no real experience, that he was given such an amazing story and all my help and all the access to my mother's oral histories, to the raw, original materials, photos, films, etc. My interview, my sister's, family members, in addition to me facilitating getting those interviews with all those incredible people. And
Um,
then he turned out saying, well, this is his project. It's only his project. He did it all.
right.
And I'm not that kind of person. You're not either. I mean, I'm a person who believes you work, particularly if you agree with a collaboration, you stay in that collaboration and you honor it. And he did not. And that is the most disappointing, hurtful thing, one of the most in my life. However, the story and the film stands on its own because of what we discussed. And that's why I'm happy that it is a final finished product that I will often, I haven't had time, but take and do showing and do talkbacks about it. And it shouldn't have never ended up this way with this filmmaker. He acted with not, really unethically in the end in terms of what you do as a documentary filmmaker against the family in which he's the subject of his documentary or now. But it's been now, it'll go forward despite everything that happened because PBS NET will air it nationwide and I will air it, I'll do some airings of it locally and have talkbacks related to it.
Yeah, and when we put this, podcast up, I'm gonna make a headline about the film and Bella
Great. Thank you.
and
Thank,
Bally. And
thank you.
you have to when I'm the listeners, that for someone to stick through that nightmare for 7 years, and of course, this is so valuable and important to her, but I know she knows it's valuable to the world to hear this story, to have that tenacity and endurance and durability and spend money and pain to get there. Great. Good for you. Damn,
Here,
I'm
you
right.
know, it, it's so true everything you said because it's such a disappointment when this story, and not only because she is my mother, of course, and my family, and this story tells the story of that, the film, but because she is so historically significant. And if she weren't my mother, as a person who taught women in leadership at Barnard College, Columbia, and who teaches it every day at the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute, her value and how she shifted history and some of the things she did in the 70s, which were so prescient when she was a congresswoman, what she did really did change the nature of some history for women in this country. And therefore, it is important for people to know as much as possible, in my view, about her. And there's some other women from that era who were congresswomen in that era in the 70s and 80s that people also should know about. But Bella, really changed the tide it was her bill that allowed single women or divorced women to get a credit card or a mortgage in their own name, because prior to her bill and legislation that passed, you couldn't get it if you were single or divorced woman, either a mortgage or a credit card. Now that changed the flow of history. You know what I mean?
Completely transform women in this country. I've always been the recipient of that role, that ability, which my mom and her mom didn't have.
Right.
Yeah, she's a powerful force for that dynamic shift that happened culturally for women. And it's a great piece of, right now, I feel like history's getting wiped clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would literally say it's getting whitewashed. The meaning is
Yeah.
it's all about white men doing it right.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you're totally right. Let me share this. Despite, a terrible president, terrible Congress that is dominated, unfortunately, by some pretty very conservative people, and they have the majority at the moment. So there's a majority of Republican conservatives in the White House, in the Congress, both houses. Okay. So for people who are Democrats or progressive Democrats or just even centrist Democrats and Republicans, we can't get through legislation that has been really important to this country, to no matter what your background, your socioeconomic, color, race, etc. And let me say this, Congresswoman Carol Maloney, who was defeated 2 years ago in New York City, she was an old friend of my mother's, and a really dear friend to me. She's someone who was carrying the women's agenda in the Congress since the 70s, since my mother was in there. And she was carrying the fight for the Equal Rights Amendment, the Federal Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution. And we are so close to passing that. Unfortunately, we are one state short of having it ratified. And she lost, and then the Congress flipped to Republican control.
Right.
So now she's come back to me as an activist and said, and she's working for the Roosevelt House at Hunter College, where the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute is housed. And she comes to me and says, listen, Liz, we are not out there, women, girls, people of color, we are out here with not a hook to hold on to, except why don't we try to rebirth the ERA? Because so many people, the federal ERA, the amendment to the U.S. Constitution for women to make equal citizens, because so many young women don't even know about it,
Yeah, it's sad. Well, so there's a revival and a way to kind of
Well, she's trying to get me to agree to work with her to revive it on college campuses and to start a campaign for a petition to have that reintroduced on the floor of the Congress and the House. Now, that could happen probably it could happen 2 years from now, and it could happen just to be debated on the floor if you get a couple of people in the Congress people to agree to get it out of committee. Motion to discharge is called.
Okay.
But, we are not in a situation in the country now, in the Congress, where we could get that passed. But in 2 and 3 years, when it flips, probably a new president, hopefully, we should be ready to get that passed. And
Wow.
we need young people to understand, young women and men, and particularly the young women, that right now, under federal law, they are not equal citizens under the United States Constitution, right? Just not.
Yeah, no, that's it. Plain and simple. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's astounding. And, when I hear you share and I hear like a grassroots effort to reclaim this piece and get it back on the floor, and would you ever consider doing a TikTok?
Sure. Let me explain. I'm glad you
I would
asked
love
that.
to see
All
you
right.
on TikTok.
No, 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 no. I'm glad you asked that for this reason. Okay. One of my friends who's a media entrepreneur and is also happens to be in chair of the Bali board, but he's an entrepreneur I've worked with outside of Bali for years. Okay. Because we've done projects together. He is a social media, has a media company and small. And he came to me in this whole discussion and said, Liz, forget about her talking about petition. We got to do a social media campaign as well. So what you were saying here, he said to me, and I agree 100%, we should do a social media platform campaign for the Equal Rights Amendment as we are trying to organize these kids on the campus, on the ground. And that is, as we know, and you're doing this podcast, the way in which to reach the most people.
Yeah, I've been, and in exploratory fashion, I have TikTok, I have and Instagram, and I do a weekly live YouTube on how to stay grounded in these turbulent times. It's called,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, I have something to offer. Let me offer it. Here it is. But when I looked, the reason I joined these platforms, Liz, is that I looked at the people I admire politically and otherwise, and they have TikToks. They
Yep.
are, hey, this is the message I want you to hear. Let me share it.
Right.
And it is a powerful reaching process,
Yeah.
although it's a world I'm so unfamiliar with, but I think it's time to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Oh, I agree 100%. And by the way, he is a man who I'm talking about, my colleague, friend, business associate, and one of the chairs of the Bali board, the Bella Abzug Institute board. Throughout, he and I have done some interesting projects on social media around the mayoral campaign 4 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. But you are right that people in our age group the ones who understand, who are the influencers, who using social media, it has a great impact on people.
It does, and there I've as I listen and learn, it's their Substack, Blue
Yep.
Sky,
Yep.
things that are I would suggest are somewhat
I agree.
out of governmental interference
I
reach.
agree. I agree 100%. I'm aware of those things as one of my friends is a young journalist who uses Substack a lot and Blue Sky. I'm aware of it too. But I also want to say that we will do that if I agree to do this, effort with her, and we will. But we also want to get people out there, if possible, on the college campuses to make some visibility in the flesh, if you will. Both ways, I'm all for, and I will. If Jonathan, that's my colleague's name, he is experienced with this, he can carry a lot of the ball on it, and he's a feminist man, which we need
Yes.
women
Yeah.
to be our partners in this.
My best friend, my new friend. Yeah, and if you need a volunteer,
Yeah.
I'll volunteer in any way I can help
Okay.
show up and give out flyers. I know I'm not somebody who's just stand on a podium. Nobody knows me the way they know you.
No, no, no. Every effort in something like this, it's really got to come from many people, many angles. You know
Right.
what I mean?
That's
That's
right.
it.
That's
That's
right.
it.
Just getting people's attention is the point.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Absolutely. Every piece we can contribute does help everything.
yeah, and I want to share one thing for your audience. I mean, around visibility and stars and celebs, and then regular people more like us who are, trying to, expose and be visible about our work. Cyndi Lauper just had a concert about a month ago at the Hollywood Bowl. Cyndi Lauper, everybody,
Yeah.
most people know who she is. Girls just want to have fun,
Fun.
and other many great music pieces that she's written. She, in a stage of probably 20,000 people at the Hollywood Bowl near the end, and I, of course, wasn't there, but this was reported to me, started talking about Bella. And why? My mother. Why?
Wow.
Because of what I said before about the credit card legislation, the Fair Credit Act that she got passed. Somehow, she pulled that in at the very end of her concert as a liberating example for girls and women want to have fun and beyond. And let me just say this. She and I, meaning her mother and she, Cyndi Lauper, and her mother, me and my mother, sat behind each other in a Broadway musical years ago. And they were so taken by her, both of them, Cyndi Lauper and her mom. And I was, of course, I was very taken by that. They were so
That's
touched by Bella. And, I'm just there as the daughter at that point. My point is, I could not believe, Kira, that 50 years, and really it is, since Bella was in Congress and
wow.
did the
Yeah.
things that she
70s.
did,
Yeah.
where you have a major musician, a major celeb musician woman on a stage in front of all those people at a concert that was hers, bringing that out, bringing that up.
Well, because it's still a living issue for all of us.
Exactly.
And I'm very happy to hear she did it. I know music is like a way to bring a transformative message to people
Totally.
on this giant stage.
Totally. Totally.
And when you combine music with human rights, holy crap.
Exactly.
I mean,
You
what a
know,
great way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you might be aware, and maybe listeners will be aware. In that on that point you just said is that Lilith Fair, Sarah McLachlan's effort years ago to get rock and other all types of musicians, women's musicians, totally really happened. Now they've done that was back in the I don't know 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and now a documentary has been made on it. Okay, a documentary on the Lilith Fair, and it's gotten a lot of press, and it's on, I believe, on what's it, Netflix, okay, or Hulu, on one or the other.
Okay.
It's just come out. It's just come out. But the reason, to your point, is that here is, some another famous musician, committed woman, for women's rights. Sarah McLachlan, and a group of women who were amazing. The Indigo Girls was part of that Lilith Fair major festival concert, and now they've done a documentary on it, and it's gotten renewed attention.
Well, yeah, and Jane Fonda just started a TikTok
Yep,
and a whole
yep,
media platform post on First Amendment,
yeah. I know. I saw it.
and
Actually, I saw it.
it's fabulous. It's
Yep.
so freaking fabulous. What you represent to me, and I've known you and I consider myself, from afar. I know you only recently, yeah, because of my
Well, we're friends
We're
now.
well, yeah, well, thank you. I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah.
honored. Thank you for that. Yes, we're friends. But what I see in you is that there's just no end to the things that we can get better. So let's just
It's
go.
right.
Let's just go for
It's
it.
right. And I want to say this is a healing, your work on healing and doing the work you do in terms of transformation, individual and collective, I want to say this too. As I tell my young students in Bali, the high school, college girls in particular, you can't be a leader unless you know who you are inside.
That's it.
You can't be a leader, sustain it, unless you pull ahead and take that in. But not only that, have your time to yourself, your family, to sort of restore and revitalize who you are.
Thank you for that. That's the key is you got to find the middle of the seesaw that you can manifest so you can manifest who you are. And then when the ups and downs come, you don't fall off the seesaw.
Exactly.
And bringing that grounded part of yourself into fruition, into reality, into voice.
That's
You know,
right.
like why we sit and do this podcast and neither of us have a script, neither of us need a script because we're being ourselves. It's
Right. That's correct. And
honestly,
and when people say, you have to use some leaders, I try to use leaders sometimes who are known and some not unknown, as an example of getting inside, notwithstanding the enormous external public pressures and what the work involved in politics, let's say, is. You see that Barack Obama is an example. He was someone who came out of, activist politics in the South Side of Chicago. He also enjoyed singing and dancing. He did that publicly at one of the conventions, in terms of singing. And the thing is, to me, and I know him now because I was a delegate for him and other things. I mean, he's a holistic individual, holistic,
that's a
so that he,
saying it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
holistic.
Well, and I was having this very, of course, somewhat Kir Noel deep conversation with someone today and saying you come to somebody and they have baggage and they don't attend to it. So
Exactly.
I'm not working on my physical well-being. I'm not working on my historical damage and I'm not clearing my mind and finding out who the hell I am.
Exactly.
And you want to be in the world and looking just outside of yourself for those things to get better, and that doesn't work.
That's
So,
right.
like you're here, and Liz, you're here because you found your own way here. I want to say the magic here isn't where you're born. The magic is, do you accept the responsibility to bring who you are to the earth
That's true.
and be with her and say, whatever you are, girl, whatever you are, I love you. All
Right.
the ups, the downs, juicy, wonderful, bring it.
That's true.
It's the
All
first time
true,
I've ever said
Kier.
that.
That's right. And leaders can be in all professions, can be from behind, lead from behind, meaning they don't necessarily have to always be out front, but they're leaders in their fields, right? Or
Absolutely.
they work and organize. But I guess because your work and your show is all about, healing, and I believe your work, self-healing, etc. I wanted to raise that because I totally 100%
Mm.
agree that you need to do that as an individual in the work, notwithstanding the kind of work you do, that as a person on the planet, I try to do that in my own life,
Yeah.
to be able to sustain, to go forward in my work, to be able to keep it up, to endure.
Yeah, and there's always another, the layers of the onion to peel. But I would say in a sustained and comfortable way, I know who I am.
Exactly.
And there is always a little work to do. There always will be. Just part of
That's
the
right.
package.
That's right.
So I want to ask you, because you are the very much for me in some ways a mirror to my own fierce desire to grow and constantly develop myself.
Right.
And so what do you do for fun, Liz? How do you
Oh, all right, all right. I love photography. I work out with my trainer, which I consider kind of fun, because it's a thing I moving and I love to, sweat, move the body, et cetera, et cetera. I love going out to dinners, really good dinners with friends. And, I love movies and theater when I can get to it. And I collect art. So these are the things that make me happy. I mean, with my partner or by myself. I mean, these are things that make it fun for me.
well, also they're a rounded view of life. You're not just stuck in something that's hard to solve, a problem or a problem.
That's true. That's true.
You're
That's
some
true.
you we're here, and how do we get here? We have to find our own balance and how to continually open up and have things come in, have good things come in.
That's right.
So your organization, Valley, do you have a place people can donate?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our website, it's Bali is short like the country we're lucky, but it stands for the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute. And we have a website, www.abzuginstitute.org. We also have Instagram, and I don't know the hook right now off the top of my head. And anybody can donate online at the website, you
All
know,
right.
and they're donating for young women who are low income. The majority who are young women of color, immigrants who come from single-headed households who are incredible young women, okay? They're getting access through the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute to kinds of training that they wouldn't and couldn't afford. And so the money that anybody contributes is towards that. You know, it's
Great.
not, we are kind of lean and mean with our staff and the money goes into our programs. That's it.
That's
You know?
fabulous. Yeah, and I'm a
Yeah.
supporter, and I will post the link so people can
Thank you.
support it.
Thank you.
Of course, and the film we're gonna all go see in March is
Yeah, that's right. I want you to know that's Women's Equality Month, you know.
yes, it is. Yes,
Women's History Month.
that's
I call it
right. That's
it's
right.
Women's History Month. Women's History Month.
And
And that's one of the reasons why, we're trying to gear it towards that. It should have been released now, in my view, but nevertheless, it'll be fine and good if we can get it out there for Women's History Month in March
great.
coming up.
And what's the title of the film?
Bella, this woman's place is in the house.
Love it. Perfect. Before we came today, mentioned whether we should dress up because this is just voice only and a possibility we're going to the gym. And I was on the way to the gym. So, yeah,
Yeah, see?
the
Yeah.
balancing act never ends.
No, it doesn't. That's correct. It doesn't. And,
No.
it's so important to do that as you practice your
It
life.
is, it is. And the other thing I hear in your story is, at some point we look inside of us for the real answers. And one of the voices I carry is this idea that we all have a healer in us. In our cases, she's a healer that can help us find inner balance. But
Yep.
bringing that voice out, other people can learn from what we've learned from. Other people can hear that sound too.
That's very true.
Yeah.
One thing on that, it's sometimes hard, when you're, as you know, when you're out in a hectic world and a very difficult society, complex world, to get with that, to like get behind that, to give yourself time to reach in the soul for that. And that's what I struggle with. It's not just giving yourself physical strength through, your workouts or gym or whatever, walks, whatever. But it also is obviously a mental process, an emotional, mentally process to keep healthy while you're doing what you're living your life,
Yeah.
and working.
Yep. It's this ability to establish what I call the clear mind.
That's right.
The noise is not spinning in my mind. I'm not anybody's repository for dogma and ideologies. I have my own views, and I'm not going to let you. There's no spin here. Can't spin.
That's right.
Can't.
That's right. That's right. We have a short time on this planet,
Yeah.
and some of us have a much shorter time, very sadly. And, we got to make the most of it, live each day like nothing is promised to any of us,
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here on.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure and such a joy to hear that great things are happening, that whether or not you go into more of a political field again and start to bring back a needed change, or the things you're already doing are amazing. You really bringing it. Bringing it, woman.
All right, hon. Thank you. Power to all of us. Power to you.
Power to all of us.
Power to all of us.
Yes, and feminist men, we're here. We love you. Join.
That's correct.
We
love you. We love you. And even if you're not yet feminist men, you're going to become that hanging around sometimes. Strong women in this society.
We will adopt you into the tribe and train you.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Liz.
You're welcome. Take care.
Lovely. We'll talk to you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
We want to thank the following people. Jennifer Maidman for original music. Listen to her on iTunes and Spotify. True English of Upstate Podcast Studio for sound and recording engineering. And all our executive producers. See you next time.